I'm in a field. I'm about to show you how to get an extra 10,000 views on your failed podcast episodes. So I have personally distributed hundreds of podcast episodes, both for my own show and across all of our clients as well. So I understand the amount of effort and time that goes into creating something, so that when you release it and you get 90 views, 100 views, maybe 400 views, it's just disheartening, right? So what I'm going to show you instead is exactly how you can take those videos, renovate them, and bring them back from the dead. Now, it doesn't matter if you're brand new to content creation, if you've just launched your podcast, this system works no matter where you are along that journey, and it is really, really powerful. Now, if you're wondering, who is this guy? What does he know about podcasting? Okay, so I've launched over 22 podcasts into the top 100. We got some examples here, number 6, number 9. We even had one that went into number 1 in New Zealand. Okay, I've generated over 300 million views on YouTube with both short form and long form content. We've got some screenshots here. I've trained podcasting in front of thousands of entrepreneurs on stages all across Australia. I've learned from some of the biggest creators in the space as well. Okay, so I've been around the block. I've done a lot when it comes to podcasting. Now, the examples that I'm going to be using here today are these 3 here. So on the left-hand side is where you're going to see what the original packaging was. Now, when I say packaging, I'm referring to thumbnail, title, and the first 30 seconds of the video. That's how we package a podcast. Now, the same way that when you're walking through the grocery store or the supermarket, depending on where you are in the world, all the things that you're going to buy, like your cereals and things like that, they have packaging. Now, it's the job of the packaging to get the attention of the consumer and make up a snap judgment as to what they can expect from the product that's inside. Now, what happens in that instance is if you make a decision based on the packaging and then you purchase the product and then the product inside doesn't deliver what you expected from the packaging, you then lose trust and then you throw the product out. Or in this case, if the thumbnail and the title don't match what is then delivered in the first 30 seconds of the video, then the person is going to throw out the video, they're going to lose trust, and they will leave and go somewhere else. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about when I mean packaging. So let's work through these one by one. So on the left-hand side, this is actually an example from my podcast. So the original thumbnail and then the original title, this got us 267 views in the first 4 months. So then what I did, I renovated the video using the strategy I'm about to tell you in a second. I renovated the video and it ended up getting 47,000 views almost overnight. As we can look here, 4 months with nothing, and then I'd renovated it about here, and then it started getting some serious traction. All right. Same kind of thing with this video, 3.6K. I renovated it, 1.2 million views, and you can have a look how steep the jump was. Same thing here, 3 different types of podcasts, 3 different types of audiences, 319 views to 9.2K views. You can see how steep it was. All right. Almost a month with absolutely nothing. Then we renovated it and gave it a whole new life. Now, what actually happened? Why did this change? Now, in order to understand why these changes actually mattered, you need to understand what I call the attention hierarchy. So the attention hierarchy is the order in which people are going to gaze their attention towards your product, and then also how they're going to decide whether or not they want to continue through the journey through the attention hierarchy. So at the top of the hierarchy is the thumbnail. Okay. Oh, I don't know what that was. This is the thumbnail. So this is the very first thing that they will see when they are scrolling through the newsfeed. Now, the thumbnail is very, very important when people are browsing. It needs to capture people's attention. It needs to make them stop and create a little bit of curiosity here. So the goal of the thumbnail is not to communicate the entire idea of the podcast. The goal of the thumbnail is to give them a preconceived notion of what might be involved, okay? So if we go back to this example here, the thumbnail gives people maybe the impression that, okay, in this podcast, I'm going to be learning about bodybuilding. Maybe he's going to teach me about protein and meals. Like, I don't know what all this shit back there is. That's just noise. And then become bulletproof. What does that actually mean? I don't know. To be honest, like, that doesn't look like a show that would interest me. Okay, so therefore, very low views. All right, so the thumbnail in this instance didn't entice them enough, or the impression that it gave them wasn't captivating to enough people, so not enough people stayed. Okay, the second thing that they notice, so if this is number 1, the second thing that they notice is the title. Okay, now the job of the title is to add context to the assumptions that were made by the thumbnail. So let's go back to the bad example again. Right? 6 masculine habits to become bulletproof. Now, that gives pretty much no context beyond the thumbnail, as opposed to, hey, there's 6 habits. That really doesn't tell me anything about the episode whatsoever. Right? So therefore, people didn't view it. Then finally, we have, so this is the third, like in the social hierarchy, the attention hierarchy, is the first 30 seconds. Now, the job of the first 30 seconds is to make the viewer feel like they are in the right place. Okay, if you notice the way that I started this video, okay, I said, I'm about to show you how to make an extra 10K views on your failed podcast episodes. Now, if you're looking at this, chances are the title and the thumbnail of this particular video was something pretty much exactly that, like very close to it, if not that exact wording. Now, the reason why I started this video like that is so that you know, as soon as you land on this video, that I'm in the right place and I'm going to get the thing that the assumptions that I made from the thumbnail and title are going to deliver to me. It's very important for trust and retention. Now let's look at what I actually changed to turn less than 300 views into 47,000. Okay. So what I actually did, I did some research into what we spoke about on the podcast and what I included in the trailer. And then I thought, okay, what are some of the other topics that might hit a little bit harder, that have a clear cut through? Now, I know that porn addiction is a really big issue amongst a lot of men and women as well, but mostly men. So what I did was I angled the podcast packaging towards porn addiction because it's a very high emotional trigger. A lot of people are going to, have an emotional affiliation to it. Now, because I had chosen porn addiction, I then, if you recognize the logo that I'm mimicking here, then you have sinned before. But the vast majority of people suffering, with this or dealing with it have recognized this logo. So it was kind of a little bit of play on attention. It was very eye-catching. Now, the words that I used up here were unambiguous, meaning you know exactly what you're going to get with those words. Whereas if we look at become bulletproof, what does that mean? It can mean a million different things to a million different people. But how quitting porn changed my life is very, very clear. I understand exactly what I'm going to get from this. And then I have a clear, aspirational type thumbnail. A lot of people want to look like this dude. A lot of people want a girlfriend that looks like that. So they think, okay, if I watch this and I quit porn, I'm going to look like that and I'm going to get her. All right. Now, the title was also very, very clear and somewhat searchable. So how quitting porn changed my life. Really clear, super, super clear. Now, one thing that I wouldn't recommend typically is using the title inside the thumbnail. So typically I wouldn't have these the same. That's normally a rule that I never break. However, in this instance, it just made the most amount of sense because it was the most hard-hitting line. So I figured, let's just double up on it. But typically I would not use that. And then once I made those adjustments, then we saw a major uptick, because the beautiful thing about YouTube is very different to a lot of other social platforms, where when you make major changes to a video, like renovating them and things like that, it almost refreshes the algorithm, especially if the changes are successful. Okay. So it almost refreshes the algorithm to give it a whole new life. Now let's move on to the next one. So this one here, this was with Chase Hughes. Now at the time, Chase Hughes, he wasn't much of a name. Like, he was a very skilled individual, but he wasn't much of a name. Okay. So how an interrogation expert spots a pro manipulator. It was an okay title for the time. Now, what's really, I think, let this particular podcast down is the original thumbnail. So use this one question is quite ambiguous, especially with the one being highlighted. It's like, why do we need one to be highlighted? And use this one question for what? Okay. And then the title, how an interrogation expert spots a pro manipulator. It's okay, so like for a lot of you watching, if you got 3.6K views on a video, you probably would be very, very happy. But this was quite a large account, so we weren't happy with this. So there's too much room for interpretation here. It's not clear enough to people to make up their mind whether or not they should care, whether they should give a fuck about this episode at all. It's too vague, and therefore it got very little engagement. So what we actually did, the same kind of thing like I did up here, I attached it to a specific use case or a specific cause or a specific problem that people might be actively looking to solve. So same kind of concept, ask this one question. So ask this on the first date. So there's a very clear cut through on what this information is about and the type of person that should really care about it. If you're wanting to go on a date, if you're dating, if you're, wanting to attract someone of the opposite sex, like this is going to be highly useful for you. And all of those things, like the old expression, sex sells, all right, this works for a reason. And then if we look at the title, okay, I've added a lot of social proof and credibility. So number one behavior expert asks this to instantly know if you are dating a narcissist. Very high emotion. I've also led with credibility right at the start. So that he's no longer just an interrogation expert. He's the number one behavior expert. Now, and in the media at the time, that was definitely true. All right? Now, Chase Hughes, he has a brand now, but at the time he didn't really have a big brand. So this changes, as well as us improving the actual facial expression that he had here. We made a much clearer video, much clearer photo as well. Just all around looks like a higher quality podcast. So these improvements took this video for 3.6K to 1.2 million views. As you can see here, at about 160 days of very slow growth, and we made the changes, and then it took off. Now, the final example I want to walk you through here is from a spiritual podcast. So this is three different demographics that we're working with. Now, with this particular thumbnail, it's, as you notice, it's the same kind of thing, guys. It's ambiguous. Like, what does this actually mean? Increase your health span. Like, it's unclear what I'm going to be getting from this video. Another thing that's important to note is Sean, the podcast host, doesn't have a big brand in response to Deepak Chopra, who is huge. Right? He's got millions of followers, where Sean, in comparison, doesn't have a big brand at all. So what we actually changed from this was we got rid of Sean because he was taking up real estate. We just focused on Deepak. We made a better edit on the video. We actually gave him some emotion. And then we changed all of the background so that the focus is on a high emotion, a very high emotion sort of thing that grabs you and you can understand exactly what it is. Time is eating you alive. I can understand what they're trying to say by that. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that it solves all my problems. Okay? And then another thing that we changed is because Deepak Chopra was the biggest calling card here, we actually moved his name to the start of the episode. Okay? Well, to the start of the title, I should say. And we made some huge improvements here. So to wrap this all up in a bow, the two things you really need to focus on here are the attention hierarchy. So people's attention goes to the thumbnail first, and then that piques their curiosity. To the title second, that curiosity needs to then be validated. And then to the first 30 seconds, you need to immediately validate the reason that they are on the video by validating the click, okay? Tell them exactly what they're there for. And then the second thing you need to worry about here is make sure that there's no room for interpretation in your thumbnails. Too many people try to get fancy and romantic with it, and it's like a puzzle to try and understand what your thumbnails and your titles are trying to tell me. Tell people exactly what to expect, show it to them very, very clearly, and then I promise you, your results are going to absolutely skyrocket. So go ahead and implement this, and I'll see you in the next video.